Well, turning to Israel, Israel will fight through to victory against Hamas, even if the whole world turns against it, including the United States. That's the promise from a top Israeli government official.
That pledge comes as the United Nations is set to vote today on a resolution sponsored by the United States. It calls for a ceasefire in the war in Gaza. Paul Strand has the story from Jerusalem.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is making it clear ahead of the UN vote that a ceasefire and hostage deal is a top concern for the U.S.
There's a clear consensus around a number of shared priorities. First, the need for an immediate, sustained ceasefire with the release of hostages.
While there could be a pause in the war, the feelings of hostility toward Israel remain, as new polling shows most Palestinians are still on the side of Hamas. 71% of Palestinians in Gaza and Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank, say Hamas made the right decision to launch the attacks against Israel on October 7th. 94% think Israel has committed war crimes during the current fighting, but 91% do not think Hamas did. In fact, 93% say Hamas did not commit the atrocities seen in the videos of October 7th. But among Palestinians who have seen those videos, 17% believe Hamas fighters did commit atrocities against civilians. As the fighting continues on the ground in Gaza, Israel says it captured some 650 suspected terrorists in the military operation at the Shifa hospital this week, including top Hamas officials.
Many Hamas terrorist operatives and senior ones have been hiding in the hospital. And also Islamic Jihad group has been hiding in this hospital.
And Israel says it carried out the operation without any harm to civilians, even those working in the hospital.
Civilians, doctors, medic teams, none have been hurt.
And while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made clear Israel must launch an assault on the last Hamas stronghold in the city of Rafah in Gaza, Secretary of State Blinken made it clear before arriving in Israel today the U.S. does not support such an invasion.
A major military operation in Rafah would be a mistake, something we don't support, and it's also not necessary to deal with Hamas, which is necessary. We're going to have an opportunity next week to share in detail that view with our Israeli counterparts and to lay out our views on how to deal with the problem differently.
But Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer says Israel will go into Rafah no matter who opposes it.
Even if the entire world turns on Israel, including the United States, we're going to fight.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And they should fight. Hamas has to end. They can't live. You can't live in Israel under the threat that Hamas has said. I call it an Islamic death cult. And they have said they will repeat October 7 again and again and again and again until Israel doesn't exist anymore. Hamas cannot stay in control of the government of Gaza. If Israel doesn't move forward here and completely eliminate them, then they're going to be under threat for years to come. That can't happen. It should never happen. Listen hard to the surveys of the Palestinians where they're living in denial of what happened on October 7th. They're also living in denial of what's happening now. To take civilians and hold them as hostages is a war crime. To use hospitals and mosques and churches and residential homes as cover for your military operations, that again is a war crime. These aren't being talked about in the news media, certainly not being talked about in the Palestinian territories, but we need to talk about it, and we need to let our voice be heard. So please today, call your representative in Congress, call your senator, let them know how you feel and how you want them to support Israel. Israel is in a battle for its existence, and they need to know the United States of America is standing strong with them. There's a lot of politics going on. There's a lot of attempts to try to appeal to voters in Michigan, Muslim voters in Michigan. All of these things are happening. In that, we need to let our voice be heard. So let's put that number back on the screen. Call 202-224-3121. Now's the time to say we stand with Israel. We need to support Israel. We need to be with them in their time of need. I'm looking for you to vote for packages to help Israel in this conflict. Do it now. Again, let's get this number up. I want to say it again, 202-224-3121.